welcome to another video and welcome to what is going to be a breakdown as to how you can prepare for an ultramarathon. I have recently ran a 250km single stage ultra, and Jonny, who I have the pleasure of having beside me today for a 25km run along the coast, has recently ran the London Underground and is about to
run 900k over 10 days.
Which is a long way. So between us, we've got a fair amount of experience in ultra endurance training, and yours is looming, which is why we're doing this training run today.
6 weeks out.
Along the way, we're going to break down all the things that we think are most important to consider for whatever level distance of ultramarathon training you are focusing on. And we're going to start with some quick fire questions to give you some additional context. So Jonny, you were about to run 900km in 10 days. Why are you doing such a thing?
Great question. Two main reasons. Number one, charity. I'm a patron for a charity, Calm, the campaign against living miserably. So raising money for people fighting with mental health issues and struggling at the moment. So that for me, big reason. Number two, personal reason for what it will make of you. Anytime you do a big challenge, it's going to make something of you, to train for it, to push yourself for it, and you discover a lot about yourself as you do these things.
Number two, what does your prep look like?
It's been good so far. A lot of mileage, not so much gym works. First part of the prep was a lot of training in the gym with a lot of running. Right now, it is pretty much all running. 140, 150k weeks this week, 140 next week, 160 I believe.
25km today.
So Fergus, you've recently ran 250k in a one-stage run. What was the hardest part of that?
A specific section along Loch Lomond, which I knew and had been told was going to be the toughest bit, but when I could only really move at about 2.5km an hour for about 18k,
yeah,
I realised that maybe I hadn't prepared for it mentally as much as I wish I had done.
250k in one go, sleep deprivation. How weird did it get?
That's where the memories are made. So sleep deprivation, I had a 15-minute snooze on Saturday morning, having started on the Friday, so about 25 hours deep, and then for the rest of that, I was awake. I actually felt Saturday night, night two was where things started to get weird. Hallucinations, self-doubt, anxiety, all those sort of things really started to spike because I needed my bed. But ultimately, as you mentioned, ultra endurance is about the experience of the process and the prep and the event itself and the things you learn about yourself. And that is exactly why these things are so important to prepare you for your first ultramarathon.
Okay, so point number one, the first thing to consider is setting realistic expectations, and that's both physically and mentally. So there's a real tradition of sending it all the time, going bigger, further, faster on social media these days, and ultimately the age-old cliche of comparison is the thief of joy very much plays a part in this, whereby you want to be working with where you are currently, not where you want to be. Working towards where you want to be, that is the essence. That is what you want to be focusing on, because the value and the reward is in the process and the journey. But to be able to effectively and sustainably do that over time, you need to set realistic expectations. So don't think that you're going to be all Goggins and sign up to your first 100 miler when you've never ran a marathon before. Think sensibly, think logically, have conversations with people and set realistic A, B and C goals so that you can map out short, medium and long term and smash it. Mentally, what's important? Mentally what's important, actually having a really strong why as to why you want to do this. If you go into these challenges, 100Ks, 100 milers, multi-day challenges, without a strong why or something you want to take out of it, when it gets tough, you will not want to be there. And no matter how hard ultras get and challenges get, even if you don't think you can continue on, you just want to be happy that you're there. And I think a lot of people go into ultras and challenges thinking, oh, I saw this guy on Instagram and YouTube doing this crazy thing. Oh, well, let's give that a go. Can be fine, but as long as you've got a genuine reason why you want to put yourself in that situation. Because believe you me, it sucks. And unless you've got a really strong why, you will fold in half like a deck chair halfway through when your legs don't want to work anymore. So finding out what that why is, why you want to push yourself, is so important going into any challenge, race, plan or build. Ego is the enemy. If there's one thing to take away from this video, it's to establish a clear reason why. Okay, so the second thing to consider is the importance of having a structure, having a plan, some parameters you can work within. That feeds off having clear goals, and then it's important to, as everything is with ultra endurance, remove friction. One of the easiest ways to do that day to day is by knowing what you need to do when you wake up in the morning, knowing what you need to eat, knowing what your training's gonna look like, knowing where you need to get to, knowing what kit you're gonna have to pack, and that all comes down to having a clear structure and a clear plan. I wouldn't have got through half the things I've got through in the past if I didn't remove that friction, and I know for a fact, me too. So every Sunday I write out my entire week hour by hour with training. So what runs I'm gonna do, what lifts I'm gonna do, what's my physio like, whiteboard, so I see that every single day, and as I complete each session I tick it off.
That way the decision's been made on the Sunday student sessions, not each day. I have a structure, I have a clear path, I know what I'm doing that week, and I'm ready for it, as opposed to choosing on the day what I feel like doing. Usually I don't feel like doing anything, but you have to do the things that you're programmed, because you get benefits from, values from. That's how you get in condition to be able to run ultra marathons.
Don't make it up as you go along. And in fact, I have an even better suggestion. I just so happen to have a coaching business that's linked in the description down below, so if you'd like to go and check that out, there's also a discount code for you to use there. And if you want to book in a consultation to talk through one-to-one training, then you're more than welcome to do so as well. Head down there, see you up there. So the third thing to consider is that mindset truly is everything in terms of the process and the reward. So with that in mind, it's important to build in opportunities to fail in training. You need to do the reps and make the mistakes in training so that when the variables inevitably come during your ultra, you're better prepared emotionally and physically to deal with them. In my opinion, most of the reward with ultra endurance is in the process of training for it and exposing yourself to those variables and learning how you deal with it when they present themselves. So the more that you can do and strategically work into your training by design to callous your mind and strengthen your noggin, so to speak, the better prepared you'll be when event day comes along and it's raining, you trip over, you run out of fuel, a Bengal tiger comes out and slices you across the throat. You'll know what to do next. Maybe, apart from the last one, depending on where you do your training.
When it comes to ultras, mindset is everything, especially in training. Marathon training is interesting. Hills, fast runs, slow runs, fartlek workouts, you name it, it encompasses a scope of running. Ultra running is majority zone 2 long runs. Doing 150, 160k a week of just zone 2 running is time consuming, it is boring, but that is why you're getting so in for it. The mental preparation of being in your feet that long, pushing that long in an uncomfortable place, doesn't just push your body and test your body, it tests your mind. Training for ultras is hard. Running ultras is hard, but training for it is where you calcify the mind and really zone in on what it's all about.
Whether it's 150 or 160k per week, whatever your volume is, Johnny's is pretty bloody high at the moment. The important thing is to accept that there's going to be sessions that you don't want to do, but the reward is when you get up and do them anyway. Ultra endurance is designed to test you, and test you, it will. Mindset's everything.
So the fourth thing to consider is the importance of balancing the books when it comes to your nutrition. And by that I mean, as your running volume and ultra endurance volume increases, your energy expenditure will, which means that it's very important to balance the books by making sure that you are adjusting and consuming more calories. Your carb intake will have to go up. You'll want to focus on protein intake as well to make sure that you're assisting your recovery and holding on to any muscle mass that you've worked hard to build over the years. But it's not just important to adjust your calorie intake and nutrition intake day to day, it's also important to focus on intra-workout nutrition, because this is carbs, electrolytes and water, which is keeping me sustained today. But in general terms, what do we need to consider?
A few things. How far are you going? How many calories do you burn? We're all different sizes. I'm just shy of 100 kilos, so I go for 120 to 150 grams of carbs per hour. I know some ultra runners who are 60 kilos and go through a lot less than that. In terms of the temperature, the hotter it gets, the more you will sweat. Today, very salty, very sweaty. It's 22 degrees out here. I'm going through a lot of electrolytes to make sure I'm performing well, I'm not cramping up. As a particularly sweaty man, I do go through a lot of electrolytes anyway, doubling up today. Again, 90 grams of carbs per gel, making sure I'm getting enough in, making sure I'm fueling myself enough, because if I start going through periods where I'm not fueling properly, I will feel awful, my training will suck, I won't recover properly, I won't be able to push myself properly, and in general, I won't enjoy the process. Not that it's overly enjoyable, but nonetheless, you need to try and make it as enjoyable as possible as you go through these things. So far better to overfuel than underfuel. I haven't actually managed to overfuel yet, but I have underfueled many times. That sucks.
If you overfuel, you'll probably shit yourself. So that's something that we want to avoid. Anyway, in general terms, there is a lot more detail that I've divin, definitely not divin. That's a brief overview. If you want more detail and some parameters to work with, then you want a little bit more of an understanding, head to the video that's just on the screen up here, where I break down the 3 pillars of performance when it comes to fueling your long runs.
Job done, finishing in quite a tranquil little setting for what was quite a tranquil little run, and that is a huge part of why I value ultra endurance training so much, because it is exactly that. It's tranquil, it's peaceful, it's zone 2 dominant, you get to have conversations along the way. And before we dive into the 5th sort of point/bonus round where we'll just share our final tips, 25k, 2 hours, 8 minutes and 28 seconds, data on the screen for you. Somewhere, make sure to go and check Jonny out on Strava as well to see what 3 30ks next week look like.
4 30ks next week, back to back.
Even more 30ks. Plenty of 30ks next week. So I thought for the final sort of segment, we would do a little bit of a quick fire round, starting with the biggest lesson that we took from our first ultra. What was your first ultra? Biggest lesson? Go.
First ultra, 100k, Thames Path. Biggest lesson, don't caffeinate after 80k. Stomach fell out of me, had to find a quiet location on the river, and hell fell out my backside.
Why do you think we're in this nice little setting? Biggest lesson for me, I had my first ever ultra as a self-supported overnight training run from Glasgow to Edinburgh along the Union Canal. Funnily enough, it's all documented here on YouTube, so you can watch those lessons unfold in real time, but I think that really just punched, don't get complacent, and really map things out to me, because ultras require a lot of input and variables, and I think for the quickfire bonus round, I am going to run through the first thing to consider, which is stress test your systems. Kit, nutrition, clothing, all of the things that go into an ultra. Sometimes they'll be trail focused, sometimes you might need to have tape seam waterproof, so you want to trial these things in training. You want to have an Excel spreadsheet or something to write down, monitor it, and use every single big training run each week as a wear test to improve things week to week. Do not get complacent and buy a brand new waterproof the week before your race. Do not get complacent and think, I'll just live off the aid stations and see what happens to my stomach. Otherwise you may end up like this man here. So stress test your systems, do it week to week in your training, and you'll be going in the right direction. Bonus round, go.
Training should be hard. Embrace the suck, embrace the toughness of training. And again, stress testing your kit, stress test yourself. Put yourself in deep waters before the event. Know what hard graft is before you get into the race. You don't want to find things out about yourself on the race day, which you will. You want to find out a lot of these things in training. So testing yourself in training, test. Be prepared through training for the actual event itself, so you're not completely out of your depth when you find yourself in these big events.
Next thing for me, finally, is to vary your route planning. You're going to get bigger and bigger and longer runs. Do not just run out of your front door and do the same at that same loop, because you won't have the stimulation and the opportunity that long aerobic volume can give you on a week-by-week basis. I find it's massively mentally beneficial for me as a calibration point on the week as we go. So make sure that you vary your route and use the experience of training for an ultra as an opportunity to explore new places. You've never ran along the east coast of Scotland before?
Never
Yet
before.
Here we are.
Beautiful.
Last final bonus round point from you, Jonny, go.
Last point, enjoy it. It's a part of a process. Enjoy what you discover about yourself through training, through discipline. Understand that the values you pick up, the hard work, all these things are a part of the process, and enjoy it, because again, it's a very rare occasion you find yourself running an ultramarathon. It's not a weekly occurrence. It is a thing you do maybe once or twice a year, sometimes once or twice in your lifetime, and embrace the fact that it's a special moment, and don't forget it.
We've covered things off quite top line today, so I hope that has been informative. Again, I've pointed you in the direction of how to fuel effectively for long runs with the video that was on screen earlier. Zone 2 and aerobic training underpins all ultra endurance training, so if you head up here, it'll be linked in the description down below. I've done a video on how you can build your aerobic base. Don't forget to check out the link in the description to get yourself a discount off anything at Omnia Performance. If you do need a specific plan, don't forget to check out all of Jonny's social media and his Strava for all of the tomfoolery to follow. I very much hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like it if you have enjoyed it. Comment with your thoughts, feelings, and or suggestions for people to be prepared for their first ultramarathon from your experience, and hit subscribe and ding that little bell thing as well so that you don't miss any more of these videos. And whilst we're at it, we've also done a video on how to train as a heavier runner, which thumbnail looks like this. You can go and watch that. It's also really good like this one. So if you're still here, thank you and goodbye.